This is Scott Becker with the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast and the Becker Business Minute Podcast. These are 7 stories that we're following today, and that's the title of this podcast. If you text me, and you're the first person to text me, and you listen to this podcast, tell me which podcast it was, and we will give you a $50 Amazon gift certificate. So thank you very much for listening. So first, the big story today is the potential collapse of banking giant Credit Suisse. The shares of the bank fell about 20+% in pre-market trading. They're down more now. The top shareholder says that they're no longer going to provide assistance. Credit Suisse seems to face a crisis every year. It does not seem like a greatly managed bank, but it is troubling for the entire banking system. Second, the Credit Suisse situation is the market's down significantly today after what was a great day yesterday. The core story today is U.S. futures sink and the markets are sinking amid Credit Suisse's turmoil. That's a Bloomberg article. Treasury yields are falling dramatically as it seems like the Fed's ability to raise rates is going to soften considerably as they need to get banks out of trouble and can't be raising the Fed funds rate like they've been raising it. The 1-year opened around 4.32. It's down further than that now. It was literally at 5.2% last week. So it's down literally 100 basis points in the last week. Third, Treasury yields are falling fast as there's an assessment that central banks best stop raising rates for now, and amid a flight to safety by investors moving money to big banks and also moving money to treasuries. Fourth, Warren Buffett and others have famously said, you see us no clothes on when the tide goes out. In other words, you see who is poorly managed when the economy has a downturn and not tailwinds. Here, this is becoming obvious that a lot of banks are very poorly managed, i.e. they're holding excess long-term bonds in a rising interest rate environment. This left them with much smaller balance sheets and much less liquidity than they planned. There's a great article today in Fox Business. Silicon Valley Bank committed one of the most elementary errors in banking. And this is Larry Summers saying this. Larry Summers, brilliant Treasury Secretary, was appointed by Obama and Clinton, has served in both administrations, basically says that the basic error they made was they were borrowing money short-term, investing it long-term. So they're investing in long-term loans they're giving out, while their borrowing rates went up so much that those long-term loans became less valuable, paying lower interest rates, and they had to borrow at much higher rates to cover them. Just elementary, basic business banking. Fifth story, the largest banks are raking in deposits as people flee to safety. Here, Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, other big banks are bringing in a ton of money. They are attracting a flood of deposits after SVB collapsed and after the collapse of other banks. Reuters reported on that. Sixth, the politicians, of course, are out in full force trying to blame the other parties for the mess. In general, what a mess our political class has become. Seventh, great comments this morning on both sides of should the government protect corporate depositors versus individual depositors. A lot of the depositors of these failing banks are big businesses that put their money at these banks and were way above deposit limits for FDIC insurance, and so now are exposed. One school of thought says these companies ought to take that real risk and be smarter about managing where they put their money. Other sides say no fault of their own, and so the back if we don't protect those depositors in the banking system. Different schools of thought on. Anyway, in any event, those are 7 of the stories that we're following this morning. As a PS, I'll get a chance to interview Larry Bird at the Becker's Healthcare annual meeting coming up in a couple weeks, and very excited to do that. Famous player for the Celtics, famous general manager, famous player at Indiana State, Larry Bird. Looking forward to that of the Bird versus Johnson era. Thank you for listening to the Becker Business Minute, the Becker Private Equity Podcast. Again, text me, 773-766-5322. If you're the first person to text me, we'll send you a $50 Amazon gift certificate. Thank you very much.